feel to be out at the cottage?
Oh, it's nice. I haven't had like too much time to be
Yeah.
here this summer, which is, I mean, good because I've been busy. But this is kind of like my last chance because we're closing it up next weekend for the season. So I was like, I'm going this week. I'm just gonna stay here for 3 days.
Yes, I love it. Is it quiet out there now that everyone's
Yes, like one of our neighbors is here, but other than that, it seems like nobody's here at all. I'm sure with everybody with the kids back in school and everything, it's a bit quiet during the week now.
it's funny out east you guys call it cottage. Out west we call it cabin.
Cabin, I know. So I was just in Manitoba for a week before the CCMAs, and I have like some wonderful friends out there who took me to their cabin for the weekend. And so, like after the weekend, all I could say was cabin. I was like, "Oh yeah, I'm going to the cabin on the weekend." But now that I'm back in Ontario, it's like the automatic switch back to cottage.
Cottage. Yeah. If I went out there, take me a little bit to get used to cottage. So it's the same thing, give or take.
Yeah, it's the same thing. I feel like it's just, I don't know, apparently, depending on where you live, we call it something different.
Exactly. So you love the color purple, I'm guessing.
Sure do.
Is that a hard guess or what?
I know it's funny. Every time I go to the airport, somebody makes that joke with me because, like, my suitcase is purple, my phone's purple. You have to take out your laptop, of
Yeah.
course, which is also purple. So, and of course, my hair. So, every time I'm going through security, I always get that joke. They're like, "So, your favorite color is purple, huh?"
And was that a thing that you grew up with, or was it later in life you just fell in love with the color?
A little bit later in life. Actually, when I was a kid, I would always tell people that black was my favorite color. But like when you were a kid, people were like, that doesn't count. That's not a color or whatever,
It's a
which I guess
shade,
was
yes.
true, right? And then just later, kind of growing up, I was like, well, purple's like the closest to black. It's like one step above being the color
Exactly.
black. And so then I just kind of fell in love with purple as well.
And you stuck with it, which is great.
Right? It's in all my branding now, of course, and even like down to my car has purple detailing, so people know
No
it's
way.
me everywhere I go.
Have you thought about painting the cottage purple?
Yes, I don't think my grandma would allow it, but if it was allowed, it would have been done
It would have been
already.
done. I love your hats, by the way.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I even have like a bit of a collection here at the cottage. These are all like really old hats, but at home I have an entire wall and a hat stand, and some of them are even hats on hats. I have too many.
So that's not a cowboy hat or a typical cowboy hat, the one you're wearing.
What are they usually called? Well, they all have like different names. I mean, like it's not like really a fedora, that's more of a smaller hat, but like this one is, oh, I'm gonna have to look it up
I
now.
love the look though of it. It's so cool because
Thank
it could be
you.
unisex, right?
Yes, absolutely. Most of them are, and they all have just like fancy their own hat names. Like I know there's like the Celeste and like things like that. So they're
Mm,
not really a cowboy hat, but yeah, they're just
yeah.
like a little fancy detail.
When you made your branding purple, because it represents you, has it helped overall?
I found that it has. So at first I was a little bit nervous about doing it because I was thinking that people were going to think it was like overdone, like everything's purple. Oh,
Mm,
sometimes you want to see something that's not purple. But now I found it's truly helpful. I get comments all the time from people saying, "Oh, we know it's a post from you because it's purple." So it automatically kind of gives that brand recognition right off the bat, which, can only be a good thing for an artist.
100%. And especially how do you stand out in this day and age? And it's not just because there's so many artists, it's social media, the attention span, right? It's 2 seconds.
Right? It's crazy. I mean, and considering all the platforms we have now, you gotta hook people in, on the first 2 seconds of the video or the photo or whatever it is, especially because, yeah, there's so many ways to find people now.
Mm.
TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, everywhere.
Mm.
So it's you really got to do something to stand out.
I never got on the Snapchat train.
No, like the only time I ever use Snapchat is like the odd friend that I
Yeah.
have that's on there that'll like send me their Snapchats and I'm like, "Oh yeah, this is what I'm doing, sitting with my dog doing nothing." But like I've never really promoted music
Mm-mm.
through there. I don't get that one as much.
No. Especially now with Instagram's got all these new features. I think it's kind of caught up, right? But
Right, because now everything has the video. That was kind of the first one, right? To send, have like your story and what you were doing during the day. And of course, now everybody can just do that on Instagram instead.
exactly. How did you get started in this journey?
Oh my goodness. I mean, I've been singing since I was a kid. My mom always jokes that, like, I guess I used to kind of make up songs as a baby, apparently, before I was even talking. I was trying to write songs. So it's always been something that's been a part of my life. I grew up with music in school. I was always like that
Mm,
kid that joined all the school musicals and was in the choir and things like
yes.
that. And I went to university for a year after high school to study English because who knew what I was going to do with that degree. And I dropped out after a year because I really wanted to pursue the music thing. And before that, I really had no idea how to even start. And even at that point, I was like, what, how do I have a music career? Like, how do I
Right.
just start being a singer? And so I recorded this god awful, like homemade music video of one of my original songs. Hopefully, it never surfaces ever. And my dad was showing it to all these people he knew at work. And this one guy happened to be best friends with this guy that owned a studio in Toronto,
Okay.
Cherry Beach Sound, which is an amazing
Hmm.
studio. And so I went over there and met this guy, and he sort of mentored me into the music industry at first. He connected me with a producer
Right.
and a vocal coach and a guy to help me like sort of better craft my songs. and and so then I just started my first album from there with the help of all of these people, and that was kind of how I got my start into this journey. But just crazy to think how all of that kind of
Oh, for
pieced
sure.
together to just be like, here you go. Just figure out how to make a first
Yeah.
album. But I was certainly lucky to have some people to show me the ropes.
That's the thing. It's so important to have the right people around you, isn't it? To encourage
Absolutely.
you.
Right, for sure, in this business that you need people who are on your side and really get what you're doing and believe in you.
Are you from a small town originally?
No, but I'm that girl that wishes I was from a small town
Same
originally.
here.
I feel like, right? It's like people from small towns were always like, "Oh, it's so boring, whatever." But if you didn't grow up in a small town, you were like, "Oh, it looks so wonderful."
So
I grew up
peaceful.
in Oakville, Ontario, which is not a small town by any means. And yeah, I always just wanted to be from like the little small town where everybody knows their neighbors and such. And so I spent a lot of time in Alliston, Ontario growing up because I had friends that lived there. And ironically now that's where I live. So my heart was always in a small town.
And now you're there.
Yeah.
When you look back at your career thus far, how important was learning to communicate, to network, to brand yourself and market yourself, yet learn when to say no and when to say yes?
Oh my goodness. So, so important. When I started, I had no idea about the business side of this industry at all. Like,
Mhm.
I was clueless. I was just like, oh, okay, I want to be a singer. I'm just going to go out there and sing, and it's just going to happen
Yeah.
for me. Like, obviously not. There's so much that goes into the background work of being an artist. And so, learning all of the business side and learning how to network and who to talk to and how to talk to them has become such an important part of my career. It's almost like 50-50 at this point. The work that I'm doing is the business as well as the artistic side. It's so much of it. There's so much you have to handle behind the scenes in order to be able to do the artistic part of your career. And
No wonder you have so many hats you're wearing. Sorry?
right? Exactly. Always wear independent artists, especially, are wearing like 12 hats at once. But I was gonna say, saying no is like one of the hardest things ever, especially for me. I'm like, oh, I gotta do this, I gotta do this, I have to please everyone and take every opportunity. But at a certain point, the mental exhaustion of wearing all those hats, you have to put your foot down eventually to be like, you know what, this is not gonna service me in my career right now. pump the brakes.
Exactly. It's you first and then everything else. Yeah.
Right? And it's so hard, especially when you're your own boss, so to speak. It's like you feel like if you're not doing anything, if you say no to something and you're just sitting on the couch doing nothing, that then you're not servicing, your career and your momentum and going forward.
Mhm.
But it's really the opposite. Sometimes you need a break.
Oh, yes. Your song that I keep reposting is my favorite song right now. So thank you for that. It's
Thank
such a good
you
song.
so much.
Yeah. Where did you get the inspiration to create that?
So I've never been much of a party girl song. I'm a party girl, but I've never known how to write a song about it. I mean, for me, music's always been a little more emotional and sort of, a diary into what's going on in my life. And but I've always wanted to have like more of a fun drinking, hanging out song. And
Right.
so I knew if I was going to do it, it was going to have to be something that like I specifically really related to. And for me, I'm just constantly that person that like cannot go to bed at a party. Like I'll get like extreme FOMO. I need to be the last one up to know what's going on. And so I took that to my co-writers, Matt Teed and Dave Madras. And I was like, I think if I'm gonna write a party song, like this has got to be the angle because it's so me. And I just love the way it turned out. Those guys are awesome
Oh,
writers.
yeah. And even the video, like, it makes you feel like, am I missing out on this or am I there right now?
Right? I love that you got that because my director and videographer, AJ Astle from Roadhouse Productions, that was his whole idea for it. He was like, I want people to feel like they're missing the best party ever, but also like they're at the party with us.
That's
So
awesome.
he
But
nailed
the
that.
and it doesn't matter what age you are, but we grew up with the red cups, we grew up with the beer pong, so we get it.
Right? I think everybody's had at least one night in their life where they were like the last one up with their friends, just drinking till 4 a.m. So I was hoping
Yeah.
everybody could find, a piece of themselves and their friends watching that video.
And then the drop happens, and when you do that live, does the audience go crazy?
Oh my goodness. Let me tell you, it's a lot harder to pull off live, especially acoustically. Obviously with a whole band you can
Yeah.
like kind of build up that momentum, have the drop and come back in. But I was just talking about this recently that doing that song acoustically is like so difficult sometimes because it's like just you and the guitar, and it's like how do you get that same momentum that is built up in the song. But I absolutely love that part of the tune, and I love coming back in on those
Mhm.
big soaring notes at the end.
Right. You know what always fascinates me as of artists is you're putting yourself out there. It's not a product or just a service. It's your soul. It's who you are. How do you keep your confidence up and your mind straight when oftentimes we have this inner dialogue that could say sometimes, well, you're not good enough or you're not today. How do you push through it?
It's honestly, it's sort of a constant roller coaster. I mean, at this point, like I am willing to say that like at least once a week I have like some kind of crisis where I'm like breaking down, being like, I should just give up, like this is not happening. Obviously, I suck. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's so easy to get into that negative self-talk. And for me, one of the biggest things that pulls me out of it is having a great support system. I mean, I am that girl that calls my mom every single day of the week to like complain about the like most minor inconvenience, being like, Mom, this happened. Please help me. And so she has just been like my biggest cheerleader through everything, when I get those moments of self-doubt. And I've been doing this for 11 years now. It's easy to think, oh, it's not going to happen for me, or things aren't
Mm,
going the way I want. I just call her up and she always gives me
yeah.
a good, motivational talk to
Interesting.
get back to it.
Uh, and you've also built this network now of artists around you. That itself is power. And it's not easy to do, rounding up people and saying, let's do this.
Yeah. It's surely not. And especially for females, obviously this is such a tough industry for female artists, and country is still very much like the bro country
Mm,
attitude and more opportunities for male artists. And so it's so easy to kind of hate on other female artists or made to feel
right.
like we're supposed to not like each other.
Hmm.
Like it's like, you know, you're gonna fight your way to the top.
Hmm.
And so for me, I was like, okay, this is something that starts on my end. And if I want to have this community and show other female artists that I'm here to support them, then I got to start it. And so obviously I have my platforms like All Woman Music and my festival HarmoniaFest, and it's all about that. It's all about having that community that really says, you know, we're here for each other. One success is all of our success, and the only way to kind of get through is to lean on each other.
So instead of tearing each other down, let's build each other up.
Right? Like, what a surprise thought process, because I feel like for so long it was like, obviously the opposite is true. Like, obviously you got to tear each other down to get somewhere. And I've realized so much more success has come from the opposite way of thinking. And it's just so much more fulfilling. Like, I really, really love being part of this community and watching what these other artists are doing as well. It inspires me every single day.
Oh, 100%. And you know, when you're cheering others on, it comes back tenfold. When that your new single comes out, I mean, you would hope, you don't
Yeah.
expect, but you would hope that it would be returned, and clearly it's paid off.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's so great to feel that love in return, obviously, and to have that support from all those ladies.
For the guys, do they have like a all men's group or an all men's crew kind of a thing? You know, I always think, why the hell is there such a divide? But there is. Yeah.
I wonder that too. And maybe it's like they haven't felt the need as much as females have, because we have this sort of divide between tearing each other down and supporting each other, that maybe men don't have that as much. Or maybe there's just
Mm,
like so many of them, they're all just like going off doing their own thing, like they're not as aware. Or maybe just as a female, I'm not aware of like that
right.
club. I don't know what's kind of going on
Secret society or
from the
something?
male, yeah, perspective. So I'm not
Yeah.
sure, but I will definitely say I'm thankful to have a lot of male artist friends and songwriters as well, especially ones that build up the female community as well and are supporters of both male and female artists.
Do we have quite a bit of a ever so growing female community in country music genre?
I feel like there's more than ever right now.
Nice.
And I feel like, you know, to me, we're all like knocking on the door, and we're just like, hello, we're all here, we're waiting. And I can't imagine it not opening up at some point. Like, we're just all here and we're being so loud, and there's so many talented females
Oh my
in
God,
Canadian
yes.
country music. Like, it's insane. I just hosted my all woman show in Calgary during CCMA weeks. I had
CCMAs.
three 3 days of shows, and there were about 28 artists on across all the lineups, and that's only some of them. And like, all of those artists blew my mind, and that's a fraction of what we have. Like, it's insane,
Gosh.
the female
Yeah.
talent.
Did you enjoy the CCMAs?
Oh my gosh, so much fun. It's
Yeah.
always so nice, right, to be back with our country music family and kind of see everybody in person, especially after the last few years. It kind of means more than ever this year.
Exactly. I felt like the connection, the smiles, the hugs, they're a little deeper, a little longer, weren't they?
Right? Yeah. Just feels so good to finally reach out and see somebody in real life and not on a rectangle.
Yes. I mean, I'm from Calgary, so I was there and I was like, oh, too bad I didn't get to see you, but
I know. It's hard. There's so many people to see and so many
like
events.
all over. Yeah.
It's like it always goes by so fast. I'm like, oh, I miss this person and this
Yeah.
person. And
And did you get a chance to look around the music theater, National Music Center?
I did not. I
Oh,
honestly, I spent like 90% of my time at the Prairie Emporium
because you had to
hosting
put it
shows.
together. Yes. Yeah.
Yes, I know that I didn't have a lot of time to do other things, which is unfortunate, but hopefully I'll be back again for another visit
For
soon.
sure. How was that venue, by the way?
I love it.
Yeah.
I absolutely love it. It kind of seems like you're in the middle of nowhere when you first drive up.
Yeah.
You're like, where is this place?
Ex-
But it's so cool. Like, it's just so unique, such a beautiful space. the artwork, all the little knickknacks and like little
Right.
personal touches they have in the space is so cool. I absolutely
Wow.
love hosting my show there.
So do you do this full time now? Is this your
I
full time?
do. I've been doing this full time for at least 5 years now. I mean, I've been
Wow.
doing it for 11, as I
Mhm.
said earlier, but the last 5 years have been no other job but this for me, which is real scary, but also very rewarding.
Oh, for sure. Is it true when they say the grind is real?
Oh yes. I mean it's 24 hours a day in some cases.
Mhm.
I'm always thinking about what the next thing is. You're always planning, especially with releasing music. Everything is like you have to calculate beforehand. You know, if you put out a
Mm.
song, if you want to put out a song October 1st, then you got to think, okay, well, I need to upload it 4 weeks before that, which means the song needs to be done 3 weeks before that, and the graphics need to be done a week before that. And the time you think about it, you're like already behind, pretty much.
Are you an introvert by nature, you think?
Not really. I
No.
mean, I definitely need my time to myself to like kind of shut down and, regenerate my energy. But uh, for the whole, I love people.
Yeah.
I love going out. I love talking, obviously. I talk a lot. So I'm definitely an extrovert for sure.
So it must have been hard those few years that we weren't really all getting together. Things were half open and whatnot. How were you able to push through it?
Honestly, I was so, so determined during those
Okay.
years to not lose momentum for my career because right before things shut down, I was kind of doing better than ever in my career. And I was like, great, like now I'm finally doing good, and the universe is just crapping on everything. And so I was just so stubborn at the time. I was like, I'm not going to let this tear me down. Like,
Mm.
I'm going to figure out ways to make music and make things
Yeah.
happen during that time. And so that's what I did. I mean, I kept really busy. I did so much writing, and I ended up figuring out ways to record new music, and I hosted my all woman music show online on Facebook.
Super cool.
So yeah, I just kept it going. Like I just refused to sit down and do nothing.
But you know what? We'll look back at that, and we were already started. How it sucked, but if people could find ways to be creative and use that time for better instead of complaining, of course, none of us wanted it. But
Right.
if you could have found inspiration within that time, and stayed in your realm, yeah, they're coming out right now alive and strong.
Right, I know, and it's like I feel horrible in a sense to say that I'm grateful for the time because I accomplished so
Mhm.
much because, it was obviously a horrible time for so many people,
Sure.
and such a hard time for people like our healthcare workers, and so it almost seems like crazy to be like, "Oh yeah, it was a great 2 years." But at the same time, I think it's, good to kind of find the silver lining in things, and knowing all the things that I got to accomplish during those years, I'm pretty grateful.
Where do we see Nicole in 5 years? What is your digital capsule here?
Ooh. Well, hopefully selling out some stadiums in 5 years from
Yeah.
now. I'm obviously trying to just continue to build momentum for
Mhm.
my career and find new fans and new ways to get my music out there every year. But I really feel ready because, a lot of times I wished things happened for me sooner in my career, but then it's kind of been a blessing because there was so much that I had to learn and so much that I had to work on. But I really, really feel ready for some of the bigger things now. And I would just, love to be on tour and be headlining the tour in five
Sure.
years from now and things like that. So I'm looking forward to where things go.
What about like an all women's tour across Canada to start?
Oh, please sign me up. I mean, to be honest, I'll probably be the one organizing it at some point.
You would be. Yeah.
Because if it doesn't happen, I'll be like, all right, how do we figure this out?
Yeah.
But I that would be an absolute dream. I mean, for me, that's a goal. Even if I get to headline my own thing at
Mhm.
some point, then I would love to pick other female artists that I believe in to be the openers and to be the ones that get to come on the road, and just to have a
So
big,
cool.
huge female tour would be unreal. I mean,
Totally.
like I said, sign me up.
You know, Do you want to stay independent or would you want to be under a label? Because there's pros and cons.
I know. It's such a tricky game.
Really is.
For me, it's like I've finally built up my career to this point where I'm making money and I'm not, a totally starving artist
Yeah.
anymore. Not that it's easy or I'm rich by any means at all. But it's like I've finally done all these things on my own and I'm having success on my own that it would be so hard for me to be like, yeah, here you go, and just kind of like hand it over
All right,
to,
we get 50% of your royalties from now on.
right? Like that just it hurts
It does.
to even think about that. But of course, it's like I never want to say never because their labels can really help you out and open a lot of doors for you. And some of those things would be amazing to have those people to help me in my career. But I think it would have to be, something really special, a good deal, and people that really believe in me and care about what I'm doing. But for me, there's other things on the horizon that I'm more excited about. Things like booking agents and people like that who can help me get bigger shows
Bigger
and get
shows.
in
Yeah.
front of bigger audiences, and that's more important to me, especially right now.
Yeah. Have you gone to Nashville before?
I have actually. I hadn't been in a long time,
Yeah.
obviously because of the pandemic, and then I went earlier this year in March, and it was just so good to be back, like in that environment and around all the people there that are just so passionate and so excited. And I'm kind of hoping to go back at the end of next month or maybe November.
So it's kind of like the Calgary Stampede on steroids.
Yes, but like at all times.
Yeah. How do you say no to things when, as an artist, we have to get out there, even for my podcast or what I do is media and marketing and content creation, where people say, "Oh, Zach, you should totally come and do this for us and highlight it. It's good exposure for you."
Oh God, the
Uh,
exposure word.
you've heard it before, haven't
Oh
you?
man, yes. And I have such respect for that if it's truly an opportunity that is like really good exposure, as in opening you up to something that you've never been able to do before, or an audience that you've never,
Right.
been in front of, and this is going to benefit you in some really cool way. Then I respect that, especially in the beginning of your career. Like I would say yes to everything because it was like, well, nobody knows who I am. How could
Exactly.
I just be like, oh, I'm too good to go do
Yeah.
this thing for free right now? Obviously, you're kind of not in the beginning. But at a certain point, yeah, you kind of have to evaluate your self-worth and everything that you've built up in your career, and does that really deserve to be given away for free at a certain point? and
Right.
and at a certain point I think the answer is no.
No.
Like I've definitely had to say no to some things that I don't feel like would benefit me, but would take a lot of energy from me, and that sometimes it's like it doesn't really balance out in those
No,
cases.
no. And you got to know your worth. And that's a tough one
Right,
to realize, right? Well, it's like, what is my price tag? How do I know? If I charge
right,
too much, well, then maybe I won't get the gig. Then, well,
right,
that sucks. Then it's a zero. So I got to, well, how much would you like to pay? Right. So then,
right. I know I've definitely played that game
same
before,
here.
right? It's like you don't want to overdo it, and then they're like, "Oh, sorry, no." But then, yeah, you don't want to undersell yourself, so it's definitely a tricky
Exactly.
game at certain points.
Oh, life. That's funny. Have you ever thought about starting a podcast or a team of you guys starting a podcast?
Oh my goodness. Yes, actually, I have my dad in my ear right now saying that's the next thing I need to do. He's been telling me, like, with all the, shows that I host, that I am good at hosting and asking questions and stuff. So he's always like, "So when are you starting your podcast? Is that next on the list?" And he already has like all these ideas for me and the
I
brand,
love it.
everything like already ready to go. So I've definitely thought about it. I mean, I carry a lot on my plate
I
already,
know.
as I said. So adding in another thing is sometimes like dangerous. I feel like that I'm just going to tip over and drop everything. So I'm very careful about when to add in another aspect of
Exactly.
my career, but it's definitely something that I'm thinking about. So I'm
Oh,
not
yeah.
ruling it out.
My last question to you before we get going is if you could meet the younger Nicole today, and if a young girl is looking at you today, what is something that you could say to inspire others to push forward despite adversity and some things that you've learned along the way?
I'd say the biggest thing is believe in yourself. Because if you don't believe in yourself, nobody else is going to either. And sometimes it's so hard, especially, I think as younger individuals and even younger me, it's so easy to be influenced by what other people have to say and other people's opinions of you. And, you're not as confident in just believing in yourself and thinking you have the right answer or the right path to go down. And I was swayed a lot, especially in my career in the beginning, like, you should be doing this is what you should look like as this kind of artist or whatever. And now it's all about trusting your gut and just believing what you think is right. That's the right decision.
Because oftentimes we have the fear of failure, but if you look back, it'll be fear of regret if you don't do what you wanted, right?
Right, absolutely. I know. I one time got a fortune cookie that said don't trouble trouble till trouble troubles you. And I hold on to that because it's just what you said. It's like you're fearing something's going to happen, so then you like make the worst of it, but don't trouble it until there is something to actually worry about. You know what I mean? Like, just go for it, because then otherwise you might regret that you didn't.
Oh, 100%. And there's another saying, it's if you keep that negative thought or story in your mind, you're actually replaying it twice over and putting yourself through that pain and trauma a few times
Right.
over. And who knows if that'll happen or not happen.
Right? Exactly. Why worry about it until there's something to worry about?
Exactly. Well, thank you, Nicole, for your time today.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me. This
My
was
pleasure.
awesome.